Sup, nerds? I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
There's been a lot of rolling rights coming out recently.
And here's another one.
There we go.
Dizzle. So Dizzle is a roll and write / kind of puzzle solving game where you'll be rolling and drafting dice and then trying to solve kind of like a mini puzzle that you have going on. But it's like a puzzle you make for yourself. You kind of like just back yourself into corners on where you're going to assign your dice and then based on what it was rolled.
It's one of the roll and rights that looks the most like an app. You know what I mean? Like this, it's almost like this was designed to be an iPhone app first, and then they're like, well, we can just put this on paper and you can just cross stuff off.
Yeah, it looks like Candy Crush where you're trying to get like, all these gems, and if you can fill up a whole row, you get points for it. And stuff.
And I mean, and that's really what you just said. That's pretty much it. You roll the dice, and you draft one. You place it. The pad has a bunch of numbers on it. You have to place the die on the number, and then from there on out,
it has to be next to an X.
Yeah, it has to be, and there are X's to start, and then from there on out, it has to be next to another die. It doesn't have to be next to the exact one you just placed, but it has to be next to another die. So you have to start spreading out from that area, and then once you're done with that round, you take those off and you put X's. So now everything adjacent to those X's is another place you can start, but still from there you need to start spreading out. So you have to do it strategically based off of the dice that you see roll. So the very first roll is that first one you pick is pretty important. Don't just pick a 5
just because you want it.
Yeah, if like the only thing next to it is a 2 and there's no 2s out there.
Yeah. Well, unless you just want to be that guy, because when it comes to your turn, if there is a dice you can place next to one of your dice, you have to place it. But if not, you have the option to roll all the dice and hopefully place one. If you can't place one, there's a penalty and you have to put one of your dice that you've selected back. So you could, in theory, be like, okay, I'm just going to take this 5, and when it gets back to me, I'm re-rolling all these dice.
Yeah, especially in a 2-player game, that's almost like a good strategy. I did pretty much exactly that, because we have, 7 dice and 2 players. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going first. I'm going to take this one right here. There is no 3 next, which is what I need. I need a 3 next, but there is no 3. So he's going to take whatever he's going to take, and then I'm going to have 5 dice to roll. I'm probably going to get a 3. Mm-hmm. And even if I don't, I'm like, okay, I'll put this one back, and I'll just, go somewhere else. But, it wasn't that big of a risk to take. Now, there are times when there's, only 1 dice left, and the die you took, you really don't want to lose any of your die, and you're looking at it, you're like, that's not the die, I can't use that die, and I need to roll, a 6 or a 4. Is it worth it for me to roll that 1 die? Maybe not, maybe I'll just pass. But I do like the pass rule of once, everybody else passes, then whoever's remaining only has 1. So they can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to take all these dice. Mm-hmm. And in a 2-player game, that's also pretty strategic of being like, there's a bunch of dice remaining. If I re-roll, I'm going to lose 1 or whatever, I might as well just pass now, because then he only gets 1
selection.
Yeah, I put myself in a corner real bad, but it's not going to be that bad because I can just screw him over too by just being like, okay, well, I pass. So enjoy your 1 last die and let's do something else now. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Speaking of being backed in a corner, if you do get to a point where you can't place any more dice, like you fill in and all of your dice are surrounded by X's or walls, like the edge of the board, then you can jump to another spot when it comes back to your turn. So that's one way that you can really strategically set up for things later. You can leave 1 block open and you're like, okay, now if I were to fill that in, if the first die I select, I fill that one in, I can't place anything adjacent to it because it's filled up. So now when it comes back to me, I get to jump to another spot and start. And with that one, after you jump, you have to continue off of that one and keep going, unless you put yourself in another hole where you're like, oh, I have to jump again. So that was kind of the funnest thing about the gimmick of having to start next to an X and trying to puzzle solve your way around this thing.
And I'm really glad that rule exists, because early on when I was first playing, I was like, oh, I want to complete this row, or I want to do whatever, and I'm like, oh crap, there's only just this one little hole here. That really sucks. I'm going to put 1 die there and then be screwed over for the remainder of my turn. But it's almost like a strategy to try and do that, to try and leave yourself those holes. Now, it's not the best thing in the world. You don't want to, have no points, but 10 different single holes, and you're planning to jump, because again, the dice could just not be in your favor. And it usually has to be the first die you throw.
Oh yeah, and it so say you want to fill up certain holes, if there's a dice out there that you can place, you must place it. So right. You'd be like, oh, I really wanted a 3 to fill in this hole, but there's like a 6 out there, and I have 6s on my board that are adjacent to X's, so I'd have to place it.
Yeah, you can't just optionally pick them up and re-roll them.
Yeah, so
right.
There's definitely, hoping that you'll get the thing you want.
There's also 4 different levels in here, and they do get a lot harder, obviously, as they go up to level 4. But I actually kind of still like the earlier levels. Like, the first one is still, it's not to the point where, like, this is the baby one and this is the gamers one. They're all pretty fun.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. The biggest difference is that there's new things you have to do. Like, eventually you get to where there's locks. Actually, this is on the second one. There's a lock.
Yeah.
You have to get the key before you can go through the lock and actually you can put a dice on that lock. Then you get to like where there's flags and
there's planets and rockets.
Yeah. So like the flag, the first person to X out that flag, or if there's multiple people in that round, they all get 10 points. Then 6, 3, 1. If you cross out a rocket at the end of the turn, you get to cross out a planet, which like jumps you from a section on the board to another section on the board,
or really to another board that you would not be able to get to otherwise.
Yeah.
There's also poop, which is negative points. Oh, and there's bombs, which aren't points to you, but they're negative points to other players. That's sort of the whole thing.
Yeah. Right off the bat.
I mean, I don't like. Okay, again, in a big sea of roll and rights right now, there are some clear winners. I still think the clever games, Ganshon Clever and Doppel So Clever, are probably my favorites. And Fleet the Dice game is also really superior. Steamrollers is pretty good. But this one was kind of surprising. I was looking at that looks really simple. Like there's a whole bunch of those really simple roll and rights where you're like, how does this one separate from another really simple roll and right? But I don't know. I really enjoy it. Has drafting, which is great. The puzzly nature is really fun. You actually, because of the drafting, it's actually can be surprisingly cutthroat. It's multiplayer solitaire on your board, but like the bombs and like, ooh, there's only 2 dice. I could take both of them. I'm gonna take this one because you can't take that one.
Exactly.
I was pretty impressed with this one.
I definitely enjoyed it. There's a lot of strategy in what you draft when you draft it. Like you're saying, like, oh, let me look at your board and see if I should take this 1 now or the 3 now. If I take the 1, you're not gonna be able to take that 3, and then either you're gonna re-roll it. Hopefully I can use whatever comes out of it, or you'll just pass, and I'll just take that 3. I did play the solo just to, when I was trying to learn it, and it holds up. It's a very interesting way of like, okay, you have these dice, I'm going to draft one, and then I had 2 dice off to the side that I had to roll, and if they matched any of these dice, I had to take them out. So it's kind of simulated other players taking dice from the pool, but sometimes I would roll and nothing would leave, so I'm like, sweet, I get another dice. So like,
yeah, it's a lot more random that way.
Yeah, like you could end up drafting, I think it was 8 dice. You could draft all 8 dice if you were really lucky in rolling the Automa player, like to not select your dice. So you could try and fill in the whole board. Like it's something that you definitely can't do in a 2 or 3 player game. Like actually cross everything out, because you just, unless everybody's like really bad at like, they keep pressing their luck and go, okay, well I picked 1 and none of these match up, so now I'm gonna re-roll everything. Oh crap, I lose this dice again. And like if they keep doing that, then maybe you could draft a lot of dice.
Yeah, it might technically be possible in theory, but probably never gonna happen.
It says in the extremely rare event, if somebody fills up their whole board, the game ends. But
well, that's it. We really recommend Dizzle. But probably if you're like a really serious gamer, you should try the clever games first. I do think those are better. But for real, I had a lot of fun with this. It's a really solid buy. We're going to put a purchase link in the description box down below. Get yourself a copy.
While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Seriously, this one is a pretty solid buy. We're going to put a link to
Dizzle my nizzle for shizzle.